We should be on.
Yeah, oh, the light's over there.
Yeah.
We are recording and our sound is on.
Okay, I'd like to bring this meeting to order. This is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Pelham. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. This public meeting has been called to satisfy requirements of the Planning Act and Council bylaws. Notice of this meeting has been given by prepaid first-class mail to all persons listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 60 meters of the subject properties. In addition, a public notice sign has been posted on the lands. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed should an application be approved. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. The purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. Please state your name and mailing address for the record. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Specific wording for conditions will be determined by the committee following the public portion of this hearing. All interested parties are invited to be present. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. There are colored forms for this purpose which are available on the back table. Any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the local appeal body within 20 days of the decision for minor variances and within 20 days of the mailing of the decision for consent applications. I would like to introduce our hearing panel. On my far left is James Federico. My left is John Clausen. I am chairing it, Wayne Lockey. On my far right is Nancy Bizzato, our town clerk. And on my right is Holly Wilford, our deputy clerk. Does any member of this panel have a pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in any of the applications to be considered at this hearing?
No, Mr. Chair.
No, Mr. Chair.
And I have none. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment? Or deferrals?
Mr. Chair, we do have one request for an adjournment, and that is with regard to application A21 of 2018 on behalf of Neil and Joanne Jennings. They have requested an adjournment so that they can continue to work with the Regional Public Health Department about the location of the septic system.
We don't need a motion for a deferral, do we?
I would prefer a motion to defer the application and also that the committee could determine whether or not the rescheduling fee is applicable. So without any discussion about the application itself, the hearing panel won't be seized of the application, so we can hear it as soon as possible. And as I understand it, the applicants have been working with the health department. So the applicants are present if there are any questions. So I would look for a motion, please.
Okay, I have a motion to defer.
Mr. Chair, I move that we defer the application. And I'm going to move that we don't waive the application fee at this time. Just because the work's gone in, we can discuss.
Okay, John, seconder?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, and you're moving that we don't waive the application fee?
I am. I guess maybe we're premature on a motion. Do we want to discuss as to why we're adjourning at this time? Or the applicants are here?
I'm Neil Jennings, 725 Church Street, Fenwick. We had the excavation work done, but it took longer than we anticipated by a local septic contractor. And the region hasn't had time to come out because they said they're busy to get the report in time for this hearing.
Okay.
Or just a minute. All we're waiting for is a report from the Niagara region?
Yes, sir.
Could I ask through the chair a question? Why can't we still hear it subject to a condition and put it as a condition and get it done today? And the condition is it won't be approved until he gets a positive report from the authorities to be.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it would be preferred because right now the planning report is not recommending approval, nor is the health department. So although I do appreciate your suggestion to make it a condition, I think that would put the health department in a difficult position. They need to give us proper comments under the building code and their requirements. So it would be preferable to make a decision with all of the appropriate information before the committee. That would be my recommendation to the committee.
Can I ask another question? If the health department said it's not possible to build, well, then that's a moot point, then at the end of the discussion, he won't get his minor variance.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant would then, of course, have the opportunity to withdraw his application. However, it's best if the committee makes a decision with all of the appropriate information before them.
What about fees? Like, does everything have to be mailed out again, like for another hearing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we will have to reschedule the hearing, and I do have one interested party, but we'll have to recirculate to all commenting agencies. The committee, it's at the sole discretion of the committee whether or not that rescheduling fee is applied. The applicants could request that the fee be waived in writing, and then the next hearing panel could make that decision, but the applicant would need to provide the information as to why the fee should be waived.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, with
Yep.
the further information, I'm going to resubmit my original motion that we, at this time, allow the adjournment and not waive the fees at this time.
Okay, and you're seconding that, John?
Yeah, I'll second then with the reprisal that when it's rescheduled, and when we hear what's going on, then we'll make our final decision on
We
final.
might not be here because we don't have
Yeah,
to
we'll
be
allow
here.
the
but
Oh, we
committee.
don't have to be,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, you're deferred. And if you want to make an application to waive the fees at the next hearing, then that's up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
We'll send the correspondence to the applicant.
Okay, I'd like to call the first A20. Are there any representatives here for A20 2018P? Larry Young? Anybody? If you want to come up and take a seat over there, might as well be comfortable. And state your name and address, please.
My name is Mark Young, 990 Cream Street, Fenwick.
Thank you.
And I'm Larry Young, 811 Effingham, Fenwick.
Thank you. Okay, our deputy clerk will read the correspondence.
Committee of Adjustment hearing, Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018. Application for minor variance. File A20 2018P, Larry Young et al. Excerpts from planning report. The subject land is located on the east side of Effingham Street, lying south of Foss Road, known municipally as 811 Effingham Street in the town of Pelham. The minor variance application requests relief from Section 7.7D, max accessory building height, to allow a maximum accessory building height of 4.9 meters, whereas 3.7 meters is allowed. To date, the following comments have been received. Fire Department, no comments. Building Department, all necessary permits are required prior to construction commencing. Public Works, no comments. Niagara Region Planning and Development Services, no objections, providing no living space or washrooms installed. Public, no comments have been received. Is the variance minor in nature? The variance is minor in nature given the rural context. Medium to large farm-style buildings are not uncommon and generally located long distances from public roads. No negative impacts are anticipated with the proposal as adequate distance buffers the impact of the building's height on nearby properties. Is the variance desirable for the development of the use of the land? The variance is desirable for the property as it allows for enhanced storage and use of the facility. The proposed design of the accessory building can also be more easily adapted to serve an agricultural function in the future if desires change. No adverse impacts are anticipated on surrounding lands. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The proposed use of a building accessory to the single detached house is permitted in the good general agricultural designation of the official plan, and the policy does permit uses which are compatible with agriculture. The increase in the accessory building height will not compromise the objective of the official plan. The variance is appropriate given the site's rural context and meets the general intent of the town's official plan policies. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The size of the proposed accessory building height to 4.9 meters is appropriate given the rural context. Ample amount of open space is available on the site. Thus, the increased height will not adversely impact the agricultural character of the area or the surrounding countryside. The variance maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw with respect to accessory building massing and sitting and locational scale. Planning staff is of the opinion that the application meets the 4 minor variance tests laid out by the Planning Act. The subject application is consistent with provincial policies, the regional official plan, and complies with the general intent of the town's official plan and zoning bylaw. The following conditions are suggested: that all necessary building permits must be obtained prior to construction commencing to the satisfaction of the Town of Pelham Chief Building Official, and that no plumbing or living space be included within the accessory building.
Thank you, Holly. Do either of the representatives care to comment further than?
The only reason for the variance is to match the existing style of the house roof itself. That was the reason for the application for a variance.
Have a similar pitch, the house.
Pardon?
Just to have a similar pitch to the house roof. So-
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that cares to comment? If not, would any of the representatives of the committee have any questions or comments?
No, Mr. Chair.
I seen that. I remember when it was being built. What was that, in 2013 or 2012? No, I don't have any comment on it.
Okay, well, I'd be ready for a motion.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that the minor variance for 811, Yep, Effingham Street be granted. The reasons for this are that the variance is minor in nature given the rural context, with medium to large farm-style buildings not uncommon and generally located long distances from the public roads. The general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. Ample open space is available on the site, and the increased height will not adversely impact the agricultural character of the area. The intent of the official plan is maintained. The proposed use of the building accessory to single detached house is permitted in the good general agricultural designation of the official plan, and policy does permit uses which are compatible with agriculture. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development and or use of the land as it allows for enhanced storage and use of the facility, and the accessory building can also be more easily adapted to serve an agricultural function in the future. This application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham. No objections were received from commenting agencies or abutting property owners. The Committee of Adjustment considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and recommendation that this application meets the Planning Act test for minor variance. I will say that the above decision is subject to the following conditions: that all necessary building permits are required prior to construction commencing for the new addition to the satisfaction of the chief building official, and that no plumbing or living space be included within the accessory building.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Motion is passed. Have 20 days before you start building.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay, the next is the one that we have deferred. The next one would be file A22, Susan Antoinette Pratt. Is there a representative here? Would you care to come up, state your name and address?
My name's Susan Antoinette Pratt.
Okay,
I live at 3120 St. Andrew Avenue in Niagara Falls.
thank you. Our representative, our clerk, deputy clerk, would you read the correspondence, please?
Application for minor variance, file A22/2018P, Susan Pratt. Excerpts from planning report. The subject land is located on the east side of Pelham Street, opposite Church Street, in the town of Pelham. The minor variance application requests relief from section 19.3A, maximum gross floor area, GFA, used for residential, to permit 85% of the GFA, whereas 50% is required. Section 19.3B, dwelling units shall only be permitted above the ground floor for any commercial use, to permit the residential dwelling unit below the ground floor, basement. And section 19.3C, minimum landscape amenity area, to permit 8.3 meters square unit of landscape amenity area, whereas 55 meters square per unit is required. To date, the following comments have been received. Fire Department, no comments. Building Department, all necessary permits are required prior to construction commencing. Public Works, no comments. Public, no comments have been received. Is the variance minor in nature? A, increasing the GFA for residential apartments from 50% to 85% is minor overall because ample commercial space exists at the property. B, ground level commercial space is being maintained with sidewalk and streetscape activation. C, reducing the required landscape amenity area is minor in nature considering the historic downtown urban context. Landscape open space is very limited in dense urban areas, and further, no changes are proposed to the site plan with the interior development. Increasing the residential house stock downtown is important to ensure the long-term vitality of commercial businesses and institutions, as well as helping to diversify downtown land uses. No building addition will result as the proposal is to reconfigure existing floor space. No adverse impacts on the neighborhood are anticipated. Is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land? A, increasing the residential GFA balance of 1419 Pelham Street is desirable for the property because it provides enduring resiliency in terms of managing rental income and vacancies. Further allowing for a more stable supply of residents downtown will support current and future businesses. B, converting the basement into residential space is desirable for the property because it makes better use of the piece of floor area, which is generally more challenging to lease given its seclusion and lack of public exposure. C, reducing the landscape amenity area requirement is desirable because it will facilitate the addition of more dwelling units to the housing stock downtown. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? A. Increasing the residential GFA balance maintains the purpose of the official plan because it will help diversify the land use mix and add housing supply downtown. B. Allowing for residential units in the basement of a mixed-use commercial building does not compromise any policies of the official plan because the commercial integrity, urban form, and active streetscape frontage is completely maintained. Pedestrian active streetscape with good urban design and residential intensification plays a critical role in the downtown designation policies of the official plan. C. Reducing the minimum landscaped amenity area requirement maintains the general purpose of the official plan because it facilitates residential intensification and diversifies the land use downtown. Further, the subject lands are within walking distance to parks and open spaces for recreational enjoyment. Physically, the variance will only allow for interior building floor plan to change, as the application has been presented. No exterior additions or alterations are proposed to the site plan. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? A. The proposed increase of the residential GFA does not compromise the general intent of the zoning bylaw because commercial space is fully maintained at grade on Pelham Street. B. Allowing residential use below the ground floor maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw because at-grade commercial space is maintained along Pelham Street. The language of this regulation is clearly intended to protect the commercial business street level facade critical to downtown Fonthill. However, the provision does not consider basement conversions for residential purposes, which provide many benefits and fully supports the commercial function along the Pelham Street business corridor. C. Reducing the landscaped amenity area will facilitate the addition of residential space in the basement and not change the current external site plan, as no changes are proposed outside. No adverse impacts are expected as a result of these variances. Adequate parking is available to serve the additional residential units. Planning staff is of the opinion that the application meets the 4 minor variance tests laid out by the Planning Act. The subject application is consistent with the provincial policies, the regional official plan, and complies with the general intent of the town official plan and zoning bylaw. The following conditions are suggested: that all necessary building permits must be obtained prior to construction commencing to the satisfaction of the Town of Pelham Building Chief Official.
Thank you, Holly. Does the representative have anything, any comments, anything to add? Anybody in the audience have any comments, anything to talk about? Okay, the committee, any comments, any questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just stating for the record, I think this kind of development is good for that section of Fonthill. I mean, we've invested in that streetscape. We're bringing businesses downtown. We've invested in transit. We've all heard of housing stock crunches and everything else. So adding residential units is a good way to go for that area.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I have no comment on that.
I have no questions or comments. Well, I'd be ready for a motion.
Okay. I'll move that because of this variance is minor nature and provides enduring resiliency in terms of managing rental income and vacancies and converting the basement into a residential space is desirable for the property, and it makes better use of the piece of floor area, which is generally more challenging to lease given its seclusion and lack of public exposure. 2, the general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained as the commercial space is fully maintained. So 3, the intent of the official plan is maintained because it will facilitate residential intensification and diversify the land uses downtown. 4, the proposal is desirable for the appropriate development and the use of the land because it provides enduring resiliency in terms of managing rental income and vacancies. 5, the application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham. And 6, there have been no objections from any agencies or budding owners. And 7, the Committee of Adjustment, we've considered the written and oral comment and agree with the minor variance report analysis and the recommendation that this application meets the planning test for minor variance. And we make this decision with the following condition, that all necessary building permits are obtained prior to construction for the new addition to the satisfaction of the chief building official. So be moved.
Thank you, John. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion? Motion is granted. 20 days.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we have one application for consent, file B6. Domenico Simonetti and Elena Simonetti. Don't know if I pronounced it right. Any representatives, would you like to come up and state your name and address? Thank you.
My name is Dominic Simonetti. I reside at 1012 Church Street, across from the property in question.
Thank you. Holly, would you read any correspondence? Please.
Application for consent, file B6/2018P. Domenico Simonetti
It's okay,
and
you can say
Elena
Dominic
Simonetti.
is fine.
The subject parcel shown as Part 2 on the attached sketch has 18.28 meters of frontage on the east side of Church Street, lying south of Canberra Road, known municipally as 1017 Church Street in the town of Pelham. Application is made for consent to convey 919.6 meters square of land, Part 2, to create a new lot for single detached residential use. 1,142.7 meters square of land, Part 1, is to be retained for continued use of a single detached dwelling. To date, the following comments have been received. Bell Canada. No concerns. Bell owns pedestals located within the road allowance. Please note that if for any reason during construction, Bell's facilities are required to be moved, the costs associated will be borne by the applicant. Building Department. Demolition permit may be required for the existing accessory building which straddles the proposed lot line. Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. Subject land lies within 15 meters of a small tributary to Coyle Creek. No objection given the proposed lot will have a sufficient building envelope outside of the 15-meter watercourse buffer. Public Works. That the applicant submit a comprehensive overall lot grading and drainage plan for all parcels to demonstrate that the drainage neither relies nor negatively impacts neighboring properties, and that all drainage will be contained within the respective lots to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works or designate. That the applicant confirm that no existing utilities currently cross the proposed new property line. Should any services cross this new property line, the applicant will be responsible for costs associated with the relocation and/or removal. That the applicant ensure that all lots are serviced with individual 20mm copper water services and 125mm sanitary sewer laterals in accordance with Town of Pelham standards. Installation of any missing services will require authorization obtained and approved by the Public Works Department through a temporary works permit. The provisions of all such services shall be completed prior to consent, and that the applicant shall bear all costs associated with these works. That the applicant submit locate cards that indicate the location of the individual water services and sanitary sewer laterals for both lots to confirm no existing water or sanitary services branch from or through the proposed lots to other lands and from or through the remaining parcel to other lands. Locate cards shall be submitted after the installation of new services. That the applicant obtain approval through an entrance and culvert permit from the Public Works Department for the installation of a new entrance or modification to an existing entrance for all lots in accordance with town standards. Installation and/or modifications of all entrances shall be completed prior to consent, and the applicant shall bear all costs associated with these works. That the applicant shall disconnect all existing services at the property line prior to the issuance of a demolition permit, and written confirmation of the disconnection must be provided to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works or designate. Planning staff is of the opinion that the proposal applies current planning and development goals dealing with appropriate infill development, making more efficient use of the existing urban lands where suitable to do so. The proposed severance should not negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood with regards to land use compatibility, traffic, privacy, and stormwater runoff. In planning staff's opinion, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to provincial, regional, and local plans. The following conditions have been suggested: that the applicant conduct an archaeological assessment and receive clearance from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Sport, disconnect all existing services at the property line prior to the issuance of any demolition permit, and written confirmation of the disconnection must be provided to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works or designate. Relocate or remove the existing accessory building. A demolition permit will be required prior to its removal. Submit a comprehensive overall lot grading and drainage plan for all parcels demonstrating that the drainage neither relies upon nor negatively impacts neighboring properties, and that all drainage will be contained within the respective boundaries of the new parcel to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works or designate. Confirm that no existing utilities cross the proposed lot line. Should any services cross the proposed lot line, the applicant shall bear responsibility for costs associated with the relocation and/or removal. Ensures both lots are serviced with individual 20mm copper water services and 125mm sanitary sewer laterals in accordance with town standards. Installation of any missing services will require authorization obtained and approved by the Public Works Department through a temporary works permit at the applicant's expense. The provisions of all such services shall be completed prior to receiving final certificate of consent. Submit locate cards for both parcels indicating the location of individual water and sanitary sewer service laterals, confirming that no services branch from or through the proposed lot lines. Locate cards shall be submitted following the service installation. Obtain approval for a driveway entrance and culvert permit issued through the Public Works Department to town standards. The applicant shall bear all costs associated with these works. Sign the Town of Pelham Standard Memorandum of Understanding explaining that development charges and cash in lieu of dedication of park purposes are required prior to issuance of a building permit. Provide the Secretary-Treasurer with a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of a certificate of consent. Provide the final certification fee of $380 payable to the Treasurer, Town of Pelham, be submitted to the Secretary-Treasurer. All costs associated with fulfilling conditions of consent shall be borne by the applicant.
Thank you, Holly. Do you have any comments or questions?
No, the only thing I didn't quite get was that thing in regards to the tourism industry. I never heard of that. What is that?
The condition was to conduct an archaeological assessment and receive clearance from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Sport.
Okay, an archaeological assessment is, you gotta go through.
Is there a reason for that? Like, is the land designated a certain way so that?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty common now when you are doing any building
Oh,
out
okay.
in the country.
Through the
Nancy?
chair,
Yes,
there's been many areas in Fenwick through the history where they find land where they can show that there were either some kind of settlements in the past or whatever. Niagara Lake is another where they say, well, we'll have to do an assessment of the land, and you'll have to hire someone that is experienced and able to do that. It's something he won't be able to do on his own.
no, it's not something you do on your own. Nancy, would you know who he gets in contact with to do that archaeological assessment?
Through the chair, Chair Lockey, the best contact would be through our Director of Planning or our Planning Department. They'll be able to put in touch with the appropriate people at the Ministry's office.
Okay. I was just curious because I never heard of such a thing. I'm sorry. I mean, there's an existing
Quite
house
common
on
now.
it and a barn, so. there's
Quite
really-
common now, especially in the rural areas.
Right.
they
No
do it.
problem.
So, and they can give you names of people who, can help you with that.
Yeah,
and-
I just wasn't aware of it, that's all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any comments, questions from the panel?
I have, it says here you're supposed to get a demolition permit.
I'm sorry?
You're supposed to get a demolition
I
permit.
did get a demolition permit.
Have you got the demolition permit already?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. No, I just see the house is being knocked down. I was
Yes, that's
very-
correct, yes. Because we had a demolition permit, I think, 2 months ago, actually.
Yeah. It's one of the conditions.
Through
Any
you,
other-
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was just reading through the pre-consultation notes, and there was some discussion on the archaeological assessment at the pre-consultation, but the planning department does say that it can be submitted with an application or ministry clearance, and it will be a condition of approval. So it was discussed at the pre-consult. The planning department will be able to provide you with the contact
Okay, good.
information, okay?
Probably was discussed with my wife, and unfortunately, she cannot be here right now, so I wasn't aware of it.
Any other questions from the audience? Any comments? If not, I'd be ready for a motion.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that file B6 2018P, application for application for consent be granted. Reasons that the application conforms to the policies of the town of Pelham, official plan, regional policy plan, and provincial policy statement, and complies with the town zoning bylaw. No objections to this proposal were received from commenting agencies or neighboring property owners. The decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of sections 5124 and 5125 of the Planning Act as amended. And the Committee of Adjustment considered all written and oral submissions and finds that, subject to the conditions of provisional consent, this application meets the Planning Act criteria, is consistent with the provincial policy statement, and complies with the growth plan, the Niagara Region official plan, and the Town of Pelham plan. I'd ask that this consent be granted, subject to the 11 conditions that have been read into the record already.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you. You'll get a statement stating all of the conditions, so. Okay, all in favor of the motion? It's passed. Thank you. Granted your application for consent 20 days after, and don't forget the archaeological.
I will dig.
Okay, we have minutes for approval.
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you, we have minutes of July 10th, 2018, and minutes of August 14th, 2018.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Anybody was there?
Oh, was that? Yeah, I was there both days. Yeah, I approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second motion, thank you. Granted. Passed.
Actually, Member Klassen was not at the July meeting.
Oh,
It
not
was,
July. I was the August.
Right.
It was July meeting. There was a whether I should be there or not.
July was James, Wayne, and Don.
Then I'll move that we approve the July minutes.
And I'll approve I move that we approve the August minutes.
Okay. I'll second them both since I was there. All passed. All in favor? Passed. And I'll ask for adjournment. And you gotta stick around and sign all the
Yeah.
things.
Mr. Chair, through you, I move that we adjourn today's meeting.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.